Hello world, my name is Brian Gannon. I am a EcoSys configurator and enthusiast, and I thought I'd do a recorded show and tell here, similar to the show and tell sessions we've had within the EcoSys technical user forum community in the past. And today, the topic for this show and tell is a effectively a configuration exercise I set for myself because so this is my sandbox 9.3 ecosys instance, and I have some projects that I've created here, and I created these a month or so ago as just test data. And I'm a fan of the TV show Severance, and these are some of the names of some of the files in the show Severance. A little bit later, though, I wanted to I want more projects. These aren't enough. And then the next thought is, well, I want to just import something with all of those file names, keeping with the Severance theme, but I want it to make an actual project for each of those. I don't just want it to be simple cost objects. And with 9.3, with looping, along with numerous other awesome things, something that came also along with 9.3 was the ability to loop action batches. So we've been able to loop actions for a while, but looping action batches are new in 9.3. And so I figured, okay, well, now that we can loop action batches, I should be able to just import a list. And in my case, I just want it keep the import as bare bones as possible. I just want to import a list of names. Um, and so in practice, uh, I don't know if this is coming up on the, no, it is on the video because I'm just sharing a portion of the screen. But yeah, I've just got this list of you can't see the very top of it. Let's see if this list of file names that I just pulled from the internet. Apparently, there's 57 names all told, and no spoilers regarding Severance. That said, once I saw that there were 58 files, oof, not not a fun time for a certain someone in the show, and looking forward to seeing how that goes as we move into season 3. Anywho, so this is the whole list, and I wanted to have projects for all of these, but I don't want to have to click create project for all of them. So yeah, so the idea here is just have the system do it for me by way of the looping action batch. So I'll sort of show and then tell. So I've made this new tab, and this is standard product 4.31, and it's without any modifications or anything, pretty much out of the box 4.31. So I've made this new tab in the project setup module that I've called project batch import, although I don't like that name because it's more than that. It's making the project. It's not just the import. But let's give it a whirl here. So I am going to do my import. I'm going to set to create new, choose update existing, set to tab delimited. I'm going to choose my file, and okay, there we go. And now I'm going to click save. And now basically the create project action batch um, dialog appears, there is a little bit of a goofiness that I'll touch on a little bit later with the new line functionality. As you might notice, this the lines aren't the way that they are on your when this dialog comes up and you're on the projects tab. But again, it's a minor aesthetic thing. But so I'm gonna choose. So what I'm doing here is I'm basically making these selections, and these are going to get applied to everything that gets created. It doesn't have to be that way. It's just for my purposes, I didn't need anything fancier than that. So I'm going to choose this. I'm just kind of choosing things at random, and we'll make the start date today, which is Thursday, April 10th, and let's go through the end of the year. And so do that. Let's see, near shore works. Do imperial. I'm going to set this to false. And there's something that a little bit of a functional test here, since this is more or less new code out of the oven, so to speak, or config. And I'm also going to do this, and just to make sure that these two things, we find that these are honored when the next step here happens. So I'm going to click run, and big money, no whammies. And off we go with the looping action batch. And how great is this? It's just gonna. I didn't have to recreate. I've created a new action batch for this feature, but the actions within it are the same. I did not create new actions. I created one new action for deleting this stuff, which we'll take a look at the config in a second, which is 7 config elements, if that. And uh, it's looping action batches are super because I didn't have to recreate really anything. I'm just reusing the create project machinery, if you will, that's within standard product, and I'm just looping it. So it takes uh, a few moments for it to loop through that AB. In this case, 50. What did I say? 58 times. So okay. So there we go. And I'm going to click OK. And I tacked on a delete function at the end to just keep this neat and tidy. So I'll touch on that a little bit more in a second. But let's pop back over here. And here we are. Now we have a bunch more projects. And now I had some of those file names already. No biggie. Okay, fine. It's just going to now there's going to be 2 with that name. No big whoop. But yeah, here we go. Now, let's just check my time phase. Okay, so that's not right. Okay, so that's a flaw, because if memory serves, I chose false. Um, Also, I put in a comment of hello world, and let's see if that comment took. Uh, doesn't look okay. So that's another flaw, and I might know why. So we'll take a look at that in a second. But minus those 2 things, which I'll follow up in comments or whatnot on follow after those are remediated. But other than those 2 minor things, here we go. We've got now 58 new fully fledged projects from one click. So I think that's pretty cool. And so how did we do that? Okay, so pretty basic stuff. So first off, I'm going to pop over here to the maintain configuration element tags area within enterprise data, and this is the configuration. I've tagged, so old habits die hard. The tag I've created for this feature is GHOS, short for Ghostwriter. The name for this instance, it's the name of the server that this is on. Underscore 13, and that's because, and this is the old habits die hard part, I, since time immemorial, when I'm building a new thing in EcoSys, it begins as a Jira issue. So this is a Jira Atlassian uh, in the cloud, which you'd be amazed at, as a private citizen, the stuff that is available for free. This is one of them. So this is my Jira project for Ghostwriter, and this is the issue for that specific feature, and I just take whatever ID that Jira assigned to it, and that becomes the tag for that feature. Again, that's been my MO forever. And then beyond that, and this is there are cons to this practice, uh, but I think the pro outweighs the cons, which is when I create new elements, configuration elements, I prefix them with the tag for that feature with a slight, I use a dash instead of an underscore. You can't use dashes in configuration element IDs. You can only use underscores and letters and numbers. But that way, in each of the dictionaries, I can quickly just get a list of the things related to this thing I'm working on by typing in the prefix. Now, the con is that, well, down the road, I may want to reuse whatever for another thing, and then now your prefixes are not identical. Nothing's perfect, but in practice, I found that the benefit of just outweighs that con. But in any event, so we've got this. I made this screen layout. Well, popping back to here for a second, all this is a screen layout, and I also touched the standard project setup section simply to throw on that third tab. But it's this screen layout which contains a spreadsheet and two action batches. So we are uh, so this is the spreadsheet, and this is the action batch that creates the projects, and this is, and I have follow a best practice of anytime we have we always put actions in action batches, no matter what, just because the technical reason is when something runs in an action batch, it's actually being executed on the server. If it's in an action, it's actually being executed. This was true in 2016, at least. Can't vouch for today, but Dan Love said it back in 2016, which to me is means it's true. Um, period. And so so this action batch has one action in it, which is to delete the things that just got imported. So the the flux capacitor here, what's actually happening is that, okay, we're importing a list and we're saving it because we need a stateful something that that the action batch can then loop through. One idea, but I didn't go forward with it, was there is this new capability within screen layouts. I'm not sure when exactly it hit the system, but you can trigger an event off of after import. So if you have a panel that's a spreadsheet that allows imports, when you make an event for that spreadsheet, you're going to have a a trigger, a source key selection of this. And I was wondering, well, if I did that, and what I've imported is, in this case, it's working forecast transactions because they're the easiest things to make. They don't need IDs. They have to go in but they're easy to make. Um, what if I set that to after import? I import, would a do those records actually exist in enough of a way that you could uh, run a report that pulls them up and the AB could loop off of them? But I didn't. It's like it's one of those things where, like, okay, do you go with the thing that you know is going to work, or do you mess around with some new thing for the sake of messing around with it? In this case, I'm like, no, I'm gonna go with good old after save. So what happens in a nutshell here is, and I'll just do the import again, is I am pulling these in, and these are just working forecast transactions. And a little kind of thing I discovered in the course of doing this is that, so when you import from a file into EcoSys, there's a innate rule that, hey, there have to be at least two columns in both the spreadsheet and the file you're importing where the captions, the headers match. At least two. Well, I wanted to just keep it as simple as possible, and I was just just interested to see, hey, could I do this with just a flat list? Well, you can't, because if you so to show what I mean here, I'm not going to save this, but if I go here, this is live television, but hopefully I can get this to do what I want. I'm going to go here, and I'm just going to take off this constant column. There is a hidden constant column here that I've called caption. I'm going to dump it, save this, close this, hit F5 to refresh, hit my import again, and let's try to import this again. I should get a pop-up. Yeah. Um, Error reading. Why is okay? That's not the error I was expecting, but let's see if I can fix the error I'm expecting. I think maybe it was that I get this on the front end, and then in the display log it complains about that, or in the batch job log, something like, no, in the display log. But let's put it back, and hopefully it works. No, not, but this is the cool thing. To kind of get past that requirement, just add a constant column. Like, I'm just going to add, and I'm going to call it caption, because that is the name of this sort of fake column in the input file. I've just put this caption here, and that is enough for EcoSys to be okay with the two captions must match rule if I did this right. So save that, and it doesn't even have to be visible. So I'll go to import this again, and uh, let's see what we get. Yeah, okay. So that's how you can get around that. You have to have the word caption or whatever in the file itself. But I thought that was kind of cool. The second kind of interesting thing is, when I was setting this up, I had working forecast transaction internal ID in the spreadsheet, although it's hidden. Yet I still, when I went to import, and after dealing with the two column thing, got the pop up of, hey, you got to have something that uniquely identifies what you're importing. You need to add external key. Like, well, I already have internal ID. That should be enough, right? No. So I just threw out external key, and they're both hidden. But I guess that's technically a bug. I don't know, but um, easily enough worked around by adding the external key column is just like an interesting quirk. Um, and so what happens is so just to briefly describe the config, what happens is we've created this spreadsheet, um, and it's a working forecast transaction spreadsheet that allows imports. And so we've turned on allow imports, and um, we have this hidden column and this hidden column, and this is what's capturing the name. I am putting them all in. I made a dedicated version for this endeavor, again called Ghost-13. And when we import these WFTs, they're all getting stamped with that version. And transaction type does not need to be here because I was deciding between, well, do I just put in order to bifurcate these from everything else, do I go with a transaction type? In the end, I'm like, no, and this is what always happens. I always, and more often than not, go with a version just because it's like the safest, feels like the safest option. But I am stamping these with a special transaction type, uh, putting them in this dedicated cost object that I created for this feature, and this is that fake caption column, and that's it. So when we import, these are just WFTs that are getting added to that cost object and that version and that transaction type unnecessarily. And then you hit save, and that triggers this action batch. And let's take a quick look at the action batch. So this action batch is a straight up copy to start with of the standard products create project action batch, which is this. So this. So I just made a copy of this and renamed it this, and then made it a loop. And the way the most heavy lifting, I suppose, with this was setting it up such that, all right, I'm still presenting the user with the action batch dialog where they make the same choices that they would make if they were making one project, except these choices are going to apply to however many projects get created. And to do that, I created basically I duplicated all of those parameters. So what we have now is, okay, the all of the ones that were already there, but I've suffixed them with input. And I did have to make these one at a time manually, and a quick comment on that in a second. Um, uh, yeah, I just make them, and I put the suffix of input on them because this input meaning this is what's being presented to the end user. Behind the scenes, what's happening is that these parameter choices that the user makes are going to be given to the loop report, which is the loop report is a working forecast transaction report that's going to take those parameter values and then hand them back to this action batch. And these ones, this second, so these ones down here are what's actually, these are being supplied by the loop report. So let's jump over to the loop report. And so here we have, and we're talking about this is the loop report, okay? So, and a cool kind of time saver that I either discovered or rediscovered, and I made a short video about this yesterday, about this one part of it, is that, okay, this loop report, I've just created these are just manual string parameters, okay? And the reason is that ultimately is to save time and clicks, but all I really need is to capture this loop report only needs to serve back the internal IDs of the lookup parameters, and that's why one little just thing to always be sure to set properly is so when these so what gets handed back by the loop report is, well, project name, which is actually description fields in for working forecast transaction. Outside of that, though, organization is, hey, just hand back the internal ID of the org that was selected. The little gotcha I mentioned is just whenever doing loop reports, you always want to be sure to set the loop report resolution type to what you want it to be. In this case, I want it to resolve these things by the internal ID. And so we do that, and it works. Now, the things that didn't, what we saw not working, which was the time phase Boolean and the comment. More research needed, but there is a little bit of what appears to be a UI bug here, maybe. And that is, oh, that's so weird. Okay, so when I was looking at this just before making this video, it was cutting off right there. Like I couldn't see these last two things. And that was why I was kind of predicting, ooh, I don't know if it's going to actually honor these two things because like when I created this action batch, everything looked normal. It was only after I came back, after saving it and coming back later, that I had this goofy UI issue where I couldn't, it cut off after time phase, and I couldn't see this or this. And by the way, now that it's showing again, this was a cool delighter sort of thing. This is actually, I made time phase, instead of it just as a manual string, I made its manual Boolean. That's another new 9.3 feature, Boolean parameters. And when you do that, oh, look at this. Isn't this cool? Like it actually is, it gives us a drop down so that of just the Boolean, the valid choices given that this is a Boolean parameter. So I can do true, false, or nothing, like always. But also it recognizes, oh, there are two Boolean parameters in this action batch that could be selected here, which is great. Just lessens the chance of a copy paste goof. So that's that. And then the little trick that I made the short video about yesterday is, okay, so we're capturing these values on the loop report. Either I didn't know this or did and forgot. You don't have to make, the drill where I'm getting a parameter, but I just want to show it on this, have a column that prints it for the purposes of a conditional format rule or whatever, or a loop report like here. I have to make a formula that I'm going to give the parameter to, and the formula is going to print whatever the parameter holds, or something else. Making a dedicated text custom field to show it. Don't need to do, just make constant columns. Like just you can make constant columns are not real actual. They're things that only exist in this spreadsheet. They're not, you're not having to create additional configuration objects. So we just make constant columns, and then in the data tab of the constant column, I can just type the parameter ID in the at equals syntax, and that works. That's good enough. So if we do, so we've got the list here. It's not saved yet though. So this report is going to come up with no records. Okay, but let's just show what I mean here. I'm going to save, but then cancel the and this is another little cool thing that I did in, I believe it's 9.3 this got added, the ability to hide the cancel button on action batches and maybe actions also. That's neat. It just makes it, because it's redundant in this case. So what I'm talking about is this fella here, and it's just a nice kind of delighter thing because uh, again, less is more, and can't this is cancel. The X is cancel, so we don't need another cancel button. So that's neat. Um, but okay, so now this is saved. So now if we go back here, and now it's going to, because these are required. Again, the required, not required. I just followed the convention of the existing standard products, existing create project action batch, uh, and I'm just, let's see here. I think that's all I need. Um, okay, okay. See, like now, so the only thing I'm taking from the file is the name, the file I imported, which then became working forecast transactions that were saved with that name in the description field of the WFT. And after that, this is just serving back to the action batch internal IDs of the lookup parameters that the end user selected on the create project dialog. And we don't have to make additional config elements to do this print back. We can just make custom fields and, or excuse me, um, constant columns and hand them back that way. Um, and then it's also filtered on create user so that in theory multiple folks could do this at the same time, and we're not going to have collision problems because it's filtered on the system current user. So this. So we're using the system variable for current username. So I think that's pretty. Was there anything else uh, yeah, no, I think that pretty much covers it. So yeah, so the we save we save the imported rows. That kicks off that action batch, which then asks the user for those selections, mostly lookup parameters, but a few dates and the Boolean and that text field. Um, and the action batch hands those over to the loop report, which then hands it back to the action batch. That's why we have to have those two um, kind of two iterations of each of those parameters, because one of them is to capture from the end user and then hand over to the loop report, and then the second set is are the ones that are getting the values from the loop report. So that's why if we come here, you know, start date or project currency, let's say, okay, this is a lookup, okay, but over here, project currency is just a constant column that holds a that holds the parameter value, which parameter what lookup parameter values are literally always are is the internal ID of the thing that was selected, and so we don't need to capture this in the loop report also as a lookup type. I mean, we could, but again, that's just more complexity. And it's not needed. So and oh, okay, the last thing. So I in the course of doing this, it was an opportunity to first to play with parameter templates, and I didn't get into column templates here, but I did get into parameter templates just because I hadn't yet, and they're really cool. They're super cool. I uh, one enhancement idea that occurred to me as I was doing it was, oh my gosh. And long story short, something, and I found that there was already an idea for it in ideas. So I'm going to plug idea E-1-289, which is ability to create parameter templates and column templates from existing config elements. Because if we can do that, then we can do anything. And the reason is that, okay, and I would imagine maybe that behind the scenes, it's not a huge lift because we can already, in those dictionaries, you can make copies of. So I'm just going to filter here, and I'm going to wrap this up because it's already longer than I wanted. Um, okay, so so imagine. Okay, so we have. I made these two parameter templates. Let's pretend that I could make a parameter template by some magic button here, like make parameter template from this. Okay, okay, done. And then it just shows up here. The reason I'm thinking maybe it's not a super heavy lift behind the scenes is because we can already make copies of this, and this is what the you could do anything part, both on the parameter template side and the column template side, and that is, well, if I can just spawn a parameter template from this action batch, well, then, now that it's here in parameter templates, then I can make a copy of that thing that got spawned and then go through the parameters and just change their types without having to retype it. That's what I did here. So this still saved me clicks, even though we don't yet have that spawning feature because I manually made this one, which is these are the parameters as lookups, the lookups that they really are. But then I made this copy and then just went through and just changed from lookup to manual entry, whatever. I don't have to copy paste. Again, saves opportunity for error. And it saved time because then I made this one manually. Then I made this copy, went through and changed them, and then went to the report, the loop report, and then just imported them into here. So what I found as I was doing this is, hey, in this world of column templates and parameter templates, when you're making a new thing, you might as well just make it as a template first because then you're going to be able to import it into whatever you need. And you've started with like kind of the template that you can now carry into other things. So that's just really exciting. And you add that one spawning piece that like spawn them from an existing object. Oh, boy, like now you can do that fabled. Oh, I have a with the column template side. Now maybe I'm getting a little greedy, but like the whole, well, not necessarily. Okay, I have a spreadsheet. Okay, or no. Let's say I have an action that I'm making, but I want to make a spreadsheet with those same elements just for testing purpose, so I can keep track of what's going on. Oh, okay. Have my action, make a copy, or excuse me, spawn a parameter template off that action. Or excuse me, no. In that case, it would be a column template. Spawn a column template off the action, then make a spreadsheet, and then just import that parameter template in the spreadsheet. And now, or column template into the spreadsheet. And now you've basically made a spreadsheet off of that action with like 2 clicks versus the dozens it takes otherwise. So thanks for watching, those who have watched, and I am going to follow up on what's going on with that Boolean and comment, since those should have come across, and I'm just wondering if it's either that UI goofiness thing that is not happening now, which is extra weird, or something else. So we shall see. Yeah, no, looks fine now. Okay, well, thanks for watching, and have a great day.